Mark your own. Oh, we get my favorite student, good old Anne. Compass rose, Mr. Dewick. 29. Is that the answer to A? Or did I do the math wrong? Yeah, one mark. And, kind of a hint, I barely gave you any room. That's my way of saying you can probably do this one calculator only or in your head. Total displacement, now I'm going to need to DULP. I'm going to need to do some vector math. So it looks like I have 11 north, 18 east. So that's going to be the displacement, the resultant. If I do the Pythagoras, it's going to be 18 squared plus 11 squared square root. 11 squared plus 18 squared square root to 20 something. 21.1. Units are kilometers. And now I need a direction because it's a displacement. And that's going to be here. Color, color, color. Opposite, adjacent. Looks like it's going to be tan theta equals opposite over adjacent. (58.6 degrees). I would take 59 degrees. 58.6 degrees. North of south, east of west, what of what? This will be east of north, or you could go 90 minus 58.6, 31.4 degrees north of east. And the way I would mark this, I would give you 1 mark for the magnitude, a half mark for the theta, and a half mark for the what of what. But if you got it right, 2 out of 2. A motorboat heads due east, river flows north. I'm going to DULP. For the river to flow north, I'm going to draw my river, I think, over here. That gives me some vertical space. So we have the motorboat heading due east. V boat is 16. V river is 8. This is a bit different from the one we did the river question in the homework or in our lesson, but in the lesson I gave you the slanty resultant and we found the components. Here I've given you the components and we can find the resultant. It's going to be, I better draw a compass rose, Mr. Dewick. Looks like it's going to be 16 plus 8. There is the resultant. It's going to have a magnitude of 16 squared plus 8 squared square root. Do you get 17.9 meters per second? At theta is going to go here, color, 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 opposite, adjacent, tan theta equals 8 over 16. You get 26.6. I would take 27 degrees if you went to the nearest degree. 26.6 degrees. North of south, east of west, what of what? Is that north of east? I agree. I would also take whatever 90 minus 26.6. I can do that in my head. 60, I think 63.4 east of north. As before, 1 mark for the magnitude, half mark for the theta, half mark for the what of what. If the river is 155 meters wide, okay, if I draw that in, I'm going to argue that in this question, that's a horizontal distance. Which velocity am I going to use? Not the 17.9. Not the 8, I'm going to use the 16. So I'm going to use dx equals vxt plus a half at squared. Oh, what did we say a was in these questions? 0. So they want me to find time. Time is going to be dx over vx. horizontal over horizontal, or vertical over vertical, but don't put a horizontal into a vertical equation. It's going to be 155 divided by 16. This might work out okay. Well, 9.6875. I'll write 9.69 seconds. One mark. How far downstream? Well, that wants me to find that distance, a vertical distance. I realize that's up the page, but you always, when you're standing on a river, downstream is whichever way the river's flowing. So in this case, north up is downstream. Okay, I'm going to go dy equals vyt. No plus a half at squared, because on the river a is 0. So it's going to be 8 times 9.69, and I can use time in this equation since it's a scalar. It's the one that can go in both a horizontal and in a vertical equation. You get 77.5 if you use your answer button. Probably a little bit different if you use 9.69, but 77.5 meters. One mark. Find the horizontal and vertical components. I better draw a compass. 67 degrees west of north. West of what? North. West of what? North. West of what? North. I'm going to go north first. I'm going to go west of north, 67 degrees. And this is 140 newtons. So I guess the components, this is going to be the vertical. This is going to be the horizontal. So I'll call this Fx. I'll call this Fy. You could also call it F west and F north, whatever notation you want to use. Usually I use X and Y because graphing. Color, 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 color. Opposite. Hypotenuse, not adjacent, Mr. Dewick. Hypotenuse. I guess sine 67 equals Fx over 140. So Fx is going to be 140 times the sine of 67. Oh, wrong button. 140 sine 67. You got 129, 128.87. I'll go 129 to 3 sig figs. Units, newtons. I'd give you 1 mark for that. And then I guess Fy is going to be cos 67. Uh, 140 cos 67. Do you get 54.7? People nodding? Newtons. Hey, we even had snow this weekend. Some of you might have gone sledding. A sled is being pulled along the ground. The rope, it looks like it makes an angle with the ground of about 72 degrees. And 117 newtons. And they want me to find the horizontal and vertical components. Color, 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 color. Opposite, hypotenuse, adjacent. It looks like cosine of 72 is going to be x over 117. Anybody want to guess what sine is going to be? I think y. Yes? Fx is going to be 117, did it again, times the cos of 72. Good morning, good morning. Let me just hit pause on my recording.
I just had something to drop off.
It's going to be 117 cos 72, 117 cos 72. Do you get 36.2? Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure sine 72 is going to be Fy over 117. Fy is going to be 117. I could have just backspaced and edited, I guess. Sine 72. You get 111.3, 111 newtons. 1 mark for each of those. A hiker walks. I see a compass rose in my future. South of what? East, south of what? East, south of what? I'm going to go east first. I'm going to go jump south of east. 65 degrees. And 25.6 kilometers. Now I'll find the horizontal, the east-west, and vertical components. I use D because it's a distance or displacement. Color, 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 color. Opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. So if I find dy first, I think dy is going to be sine 65 equals dy over 25.6. dy ends up being 25.6 sine 65. Did y'all get 23.2? Kilometers. I would take a half mark off if you didn't put units on your answers at the end, so police yourself, right? Hey, if dy is sine, anybody want to guess what dx is? Of course it is. I'll write it out here because it's a quiz. Cos 65 equals dx over 25.6. That's messy, Mr. Duick. Try that again. Cos 25.6. Not much neater, but that's work. Do you get 10.8? Kilometers. Ooh. Okay. Well, do that. I guess here we're going to say we have V engine plus V wind equals V ground. They want me to find the engine velocity. I guess to do that, I would minus the V wind over. Except, how do I subtract vectors? I don't. You know what I do instead? I'm going to add the opposite. Okay. So V ground, we want it to be west at 250. So here is V ground, and we're going to add to it the opposite of the wind. The wind is blowing due north. What's the opposite of due north? Yeah, you're a little tired this morning, boys and girls. Weekend's over. We're back. Good morning, good morning. Speaking of a little tired, good to have you here. So now, instead of a subtraction question, Kyle, it's addition. Any thoughts on how I want to add these together? You don't say. That sounds like a brilliant idea. So it's going to look like this. 250. Yep. 45. And I guess the resultant, this is going to be which way we need to point the engine. Magnitude and direction. Color, color, color. There's the theta. All right. The magnitude is going to be, V engine squared equals 45 squared plus 250 squared. So V engine is going to be 45 squared plus 250 squared. 254? Units meters per second at tan theta equals 45 over 250. And I get 10.2 degrees. North of south, east of west, what of what? South of west. Or 79.8 degrees west of south, I think would also get you the same thing. If you got that, I would give you 7 marks. In terms of part marks, if you got that wrong, I would probably give you 1 mark if I saw that. I would probably give you 1 mark for the vector triangle, 1 mark for that, 1 mark for the Pythagoras, 1 mark for the magnitude, 1 mark for the theta, and 1 mark for the what of what. That question there, I would consider B plus, A minus level. What's A level? If one of these was a slanty, in other words, instead of adding 2 nice 90-degree ones, if one of these was a slanty and you had to turn it into components, and so you ended up with 3 vectors and then had to add those. I don't think I'm going to throw one that tricky on your test. Just too much time. Can you give us, probably on your quiz though. I'll probably throw a slanty on your next quiz just to see if you can handle it. Can you give yourself a lovely score, please, out of 20? 2-0.